Hi everyone, welcome back to Grounded Haven Homestead. It is the very beginning of November here, and we're finally due to get our first frost here in our Virginia garden this week. So today we're going to go around the garden and harvest up everything that's left that is not going to survive the frost. Just a quick look around the garden because we've already been going around and harvesting a lot of things. We've already pulled out the lemongrass, so that has been cut down. On one of our arch trellises, if you can remember, we had a really big winter melon growing and we harvested that a couple of weeks ago and it came in at over 30 pounds. It's definitely the biggest thing we've ever grown, so that was really exciting. And now what we have left are a lot of our peppers and tomatoes, which we're going to be picking today. All of our tomatoes, we're going to be picking them whether they're ripe or green because at this point we don't want them to spoil if it freezes. So I'm just going to go around the garden now and pick all of the tomatoes from all of our different plants. So we have tomato plants scattered all over the garden, so I'll just have to go around and gather them all. And we're not really sure what we're going to be doing with these green tomatoes yet. Last year we made salsa verde out of them, but I don't think we were a huge fan of the flavor, so maybe this year we'll just eat them as fried green tomatoes. Depending on how close the tomatoes are to ripening, they might be able to turn red indoors. They're not going to be quite as flavorful as vine-ripened tomatoes that are grown in the middle of summer, but it definitely is an option if you don't want to eat tomatoes while they're green. Our plants have died back a lot at this point in the season, but there is still a good amount of fruit there and we don't want to waste it, so we definitely want to pick all of these tomatoes and use them in any way that we can. This year we had a much better tomato growing year than last year just because we have learned a few things and are growing different kinds of varieties. So we're really thankful for that and we're hoping that next year we can take what we've learned this year and do even better. After going through all of our various tomato plants scattered around the garden, this is what we ended up with. We have about half a basket of different kinds of tomatoes. Most of them are green, but I did find some smaller tomatoes that were red that I picked as well. Next, we're going to go and pick all of the different peppers that we have around the garden. We have some of these Korean hot peppers here. We've already picked a lot of these and we've dried the red ones and I've also pickled the green ones in soy sauce. And then we have a couple of sweet Ajvarski peppers. These plants really didn't do well for us this year, so I am glad just to get a few more out of them because we didn't get very many at all. The main pepper plants that have a lot of fruit on them right now that I want to pick are these two poblano pepper plants that are growing together. You can see that there are a ton of peppers on these plants. The branches are really weighed down, and I'm gonna pick everything that is a pretty decent size. If there is something that is really tiny, I'm gonna leave that on there because we do have a couple of nights where it might not hit freezing, and if these peppers have just a few more days to grow a little larger, then I'm willing to take that risk since they're not that large to begin with. I'm really happy with the amount of peppers that we got off of these plants. I think I picked at least 15 peppers, so that's pretty great. This is definitely the type of pepper that has done best for us this year. They are a little bit spicy, but definitely more on the mild side. Next we have a few zucchinis to pick. They are all off of this one plant and I can't believe that we have been picking zucchinis off of this plant for so long. We planted this in midsummer because all of our spring zucchini did horribly and all died. But we have just a few plants that have been growing later in the season and they have done amazingly. So we have these 3 zucchinis from this one plant. This plant is finally getting to the point where we are getting multiple zucchinis a day, so I'm pretty sad to see it go. It will likely die from this frost that we're gonna get, but I am very thankful that we were able to enjoy some zucchini this year. One of them, you can see it didn't get pollinated very well, so the end is starting to get a little wilty and it's not gonna get any bigger, so we just picked it while it was small. Next we have one last winter melon that we're going to pick off of our trellis. This one actually dropped to the ground and you can see it has that little blush of that white powder. Eventually this whole melon will be covered in that white powdery finish, but since this is not going to have time outside, we can just pick it and eat it fresh because it won't store for as long without that white finish. So I think that's pretty much it for any of the warm weather stuff that's in the garden, but we do have a few things that technically can stay a little bit past the frost, but we're gonna pick them just because they're ready. We found this one little Parisian carrot that was ready, so we picked that. It is just the cutest little nugget of a carrot. And then we also have some radishes scattered around the garden. This one here is enormous. This is a China rose radish, and this is probably the biggest one we've grown so far, and it looks really nice. These big type of radishes are really good for roasting because they're pretty peppery. And we have some leafy greens scattered around the garden. Those are going to be perfectly fine. I'm actually really excited for the frost to touch these because then they're going to get a little sweeter. We have a mix of a few different kales, some collards, and some Brussels sprouts. Then we have a row of broccolis and cabbages that I'm going to be covering up with a row cover. These plants actually don't need the extra protection, but I am covering them to protect them from deer, which do come around especially in the fall and winter. And we had one come and nibble off the tops of these the other week, so I definitely don't want that to happen again. But this row cover is a really good way to protect your crops if you have things that are a little more warm weather crops. This will help give them a little bit of extra warmth and get them through a light cold snap. We also have a ton more radishes in the back of our garden, and these are all more of the smaller kind of radishes. You can see they are in a lot of our beds because in the middle of summer when we're clearing things out, I go and sow in a ton of radishes wherever there's space, and now they are all starting to develop. So I'm really happy that I went and did that earlier in the season. You might notice that some of the tops of these radishes are missing because that deer did come and nibble on a lot of these as well, but we do have some really nice sized radishes here. We also have some that have split because we have had a lot of rain here lately, but those are still going to be perfectly fine to eat. Radishes are such a great filler crop for your beds because they are so quick to grow, and they also tolerate cooler temperatures really well when a lot of other plants haven't filled out yet or are dying back, so they're a great thing to just pop into all of these little spaces. And they are always so fun to pick, and I love that bright, vibrant, hot pink color. So I think that's it. I think we've grabbed everything from the garden that is not going to make it past our frost. This is what we ended up with. I'm not quite ready to let go of the garden this year, but it has been a really amazing season with a lot to be thankful for. And I'm really happy with this one last final harvest of all of our summer produce. We ended up with a nice pile of green tomatoes, a ton of poblano peppers, some zucchini, and our winter melon, and a couple of things we picked off screen. We have a single Asian eggplant. We also have a handful of snow peas, some banana peppers, and then those beautiful radishes and that carrot. I hope you guys enjoyed coming around the garden with us and doing this little harvest. Let me know in the comments below if your garden is still going for the year and the kinds of things that you are picking. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we'll see you again next time.